Hi, everyone. Today I have a privilege to do another interview with someone that I've known for a while and I really admire what he does. And today I want to bring him on for an interview and for him to tell his stories and all the things that he has done in the past and why they're so inspiring to me. And hopefully, that all of you out there who are listening to this will find it inspiring as well. So this is just for a short introduction, but I will let him introduce himself to you so you can learn more a little bit about him. And then later I will ask some questions about what he does and why it is so inspiring to me. So he is our guest, Duane Weenig, and let him introduce himself.
Thank you for having this interview and taking the time to meet with us, with me. And I say with us because my dog just walked in here. But my name is Duane Weenig. We live in Colorado, and I'm a periodontist here. And a few years ago, we had made a trip to Cambodia, and we're very moved and impressed by the people there. And my wife and I decided to start a nonprofit there, which we've been doing now for almost 4 years. So.
Okay, so then I'm just curious, what led you and your wife to Cambodia for the first place?
So my mother-in-law had served an LDS church mission teaching English as a second language to dignitaries and news crews in Thailand. And as she was getting older, she wanted her daughters to go with their husbands to Thailand. At the end of that trip, we stopped off in Cambodia. So that's how we ended up getting to Cambodia. And it was there where we met some people that helped us start this organization. And we were moved by their stories and by their lives and their challenges. We had actually done a couple of medical dental missions to Guatemala and to the Philippines. And early on, maybe around 2004, 2006, we had done some work. We had started an orphanage in Honduras. And so initially our plan was to maybe start some dental and medical mission work there in Cambodia. But it morphed into being more of an education program because that seemed to be what was needed most.
So tell me a little bit who you met and what kind of stories they told you.
Well, our tour guide in Cambodia was Ratana Sai, and he had been during the Khmer Rouge regime and after the 20 years after, he had some very interesting stories that occurred during that time. He remembers his brother and him hiding when the Vietnamese and the Khmer Rouge were fighting across the road in his village, and he was captured by the Khmer Rouge, put in a work camp. His brothers were able to get him out and put him in a monastery, thinking that at this monastery he'd be safe. But the Khmer Rouge ended up taking over the monastery and killed the head monk there. And just the stories that I've heard and how difficult it was for them, it really triggered my desire to do something to help them. One of the things, that I think was behind it all was that this fear of education. Many people today in rural Cambodia live amongst perpetrator and victim, live in the same village. And there was this fear of education. I got to get tougher when I talk about this. There was a fear of education. We'll start there. There was this fear of education, and education was what provided me freedom in my life to do the things and pursue the things I wanted to do. And I could not imagine living in a world where I was afraid to be educated. And I think that is really what motivated me. And in talking with Rocky and some of the other people that we met there, it became clear that really what they needed was education, because it is education that will provide a way out of challenges, no matter whether your challenges are politics or healthcare or, without proper education, you really don't have a way out. And so that, for us, our goal is by providing a quality education to these kids, we're breaking the cycle of poverty and helping open doorways for increased opportunities, not just by speaking a language, but because they've learned this language, it's allowed them to go into things in the tourist industry, but also higher education. And I think that's really what was the nidus behind us starting Cultivating Cambodia was getting people, providing an education that can change their lives to these kids.
So you mentioned that you've done some humanitarian projects in different countries like the Philippines, Guatemala, Honduras. And I would imagine those countries in terms of like economics would be somewhat similar to Cambodia. But why didn't you start an organization in those countries, yet Cambodia instead?
For that reason, I mean, I don't think it's just poverty. I think specifically, Cambodia clearly does not have the corner on genocide, but it was a genocide that was Khmer killing Khmer based upon education level and based upon political affiliation with the previous regime. And so, that didn't really exist in the Philippines. The sphere of education didn't exist. Maybe access to education did, but that's a challenge that I think is in any third world country or poor country. Access to those kind of things is difficult. But I think I was just struck by more in Cambodia the fear, but also coupled with this sense of I don't know if it's the Buddhist culture. I don't know if it's the Buddhist culture combined with their history with the Khmer Rouge, but this people that are just have so much to offer the world. When I met with the Minister of Education, a representative for the Minister of Education's office, one of the things they asked me is if I was trying to Americanize Cambodia, and I said absolutely not. I said I believe that Cambodia has a lot to offer the world, especially this world today, because there's so much division and so much and so many other issues that I think Cambodians have in some way a clear perspective on what really matters. And I think that through but I told him, I said, if they only speak Khmer, they're never going to be able to share their story and their experience with the rest of the world. And so Cambodia just moved me in a way that the other countries, although I still, I'm very fond of the things I've done in the Philippines and in Guatemala and the people there. It was the challenges that faced the Cambodian people that moved me. And yet the desire to bring about change and to learn. And I mean, I think I've told you before, when we set up our schools, we have classrooms that were just full of kids, but we would have adults come from the village and stand around just so that they too could learn English. So they just want a better life and they want to change. And they know that education is the answer because they lost so many of their educated people. In 4 years, they killed most of their doctors, their engineers, their educators, and that came at a very high price, not just in human life, but in education as it was passed down to their own people.
You can answer that question a little bit because I was going to ask. So it sounded like Cultivating Cambodia, the main reason or mission of the organization is to provide education. My question would be, what kind of education you're providing? But you kind of mentioned English. So what kind of English program are you providing and what age of the students who are in the program?
Right now, we have 8 kids that are starting in primary school, middle school, or secondary school, and then high school. Most of our kids in high school get some English. So we focus primarily on primary and middle school age level. One, because the younger kids, their brains are more pliable and seem to, it's a good time to start doing a second language. We offer mostly English. We do have a couple of Japanese courses. We chose English, and I think we're starting here. We've talked about also providing at some point as the organization grows, maybe some trade training. We have several chefs from different hotel chains that have offered to come in and maybe take some kids under their wing and teach them how to cook. We've had people that have been interested in agriculture want to come in and talk to some of the kids. So I think at some point we would like to move and include that as part of our program. But right now we're just getting back into teaching English and Japanese, and that post-COVID has been a challenge enough for us. But I think the goal would be at some point to provide other educational opportunities. One of the things that was interesting that was brought up during all of this was when I was meeting with Vida, he talked about one of our schools. He says, you've met kids from our commune, but you have not met all of the kids in our commune. You've met children from 3 villages in our commune. There are 7 other villages in our commune where the families are so poor, they can't afford to even send their kids to public school. And we've talked about incorporating this giving back type with our own kids, having them go back into the communes, and whether they're teaching them, Khmer or English or some other trade, I think it's a good idea that they also learn, because they're getting this provided for them for free, and expecting maybe them to turn and give, pay it forward and help other kids in their own commune, I think is helpful.
So Cultivating Cambodia, where is it located, and where are all the targeted areas are you at?
Right now, we have schools in Battambang province, in Babel. We have schools in Siem Reap province, in Svay Chek, in Roka Kampat, and Bangmelia. We have 11 teachers and 2 that are Japanese, and then we have 9 English, 2 Japanese, and 2 TAs. So it puts us at about, and a teacher administrator. Vida is over our curriculum, and he's in Babel and Battambang province. He has his master's degree in teaching English as a second language, and he's over our curriculum, over selecting our textbooks. He meets with me and we talk about it. He books the textbooks. He provides the training program, for the teachers, and is overseeing that part of the organization. So, which we're very, very fortunate to have him. He's just really helpful.
So how many classrooms do you have right now, and how many students are in the program?
Right now we're at about, pre-COVID, we're in the process of enrolling students. So I can't give you exactly what we have right now, but pre-COVID, we had 750 students, and we had, at the time we were doing about 35 to 40 students a classroom. We're going to have to bring that down some, because we have to spread out, social distance still. So, but I'm assuming we're going to be somewhere by the time we're done enrolling between about 500 to 600 students. And their ages, can range between 8 and 16, 17. So
I forgot to ask, when did Cultivating Cambodia start?
Cultivating Cambodia started in April of 2000. Well, we were officially recognized as a nonprofit by the U.S. government in September of 2017. But Janet and I had already built our first school. As soon as I left Cambodia, we left Cambodia in March. And as soon as I came back, I was like, okay, we've got to do this. And by May or June, we had built our first school. So yeah, so we actually started before we had our nonprofit status. We also have our NGO status in Cambodia as well.
So from the time that you started Cultivating Cambodia until now, what impacts have you seen in what you are doing, and how do you measure your impacts or success?
Well, our kids have expected levels that they have to pass, and we have tests, and they're administered, the way like Vita will even space the kids out. But I think more importantly is the impact we're having on the kids, but also on the community. I received word from the middle school superintendent. He said, he had told us that our students were matriculating through the public school system longer than other students who weren't going to our classes, because to go to our school, they have to go to public school. And there's tremendous pressure on these kids to leave school by their families economically. I mean, families have to eat. And I think if the families see that the children have a higher earning potential by obtaining a second language, especially in an area like Siem Reap or Battambang, where tourism, plays a key role in their economics, that the kids have an opportunity to help provide to the family and raise the family's income level. The kids tend to stay in school longer. So it's doing two things. It's providing a second language, but it's also helping them matriculate to public school. And we have a good working relationship with the public school. In Babel, actually, we built a computer lab, and we've been in the process of trying to get, it was pre-COVID, just before COVID, we were getting ready to put computers in the middle school computer lab, but we never got it completed because COVID hit and then the school shut down. So we've had a couple of bumps in the road. They rebuilt the high school, which then shuffled some of the high school kids into the middle school, and it just created some challenges, but we're still moving forward. And the plan is still to finish those computer labs, both in the middle school and the high school.
So what will be the vision of Cultivating Cambodia in the future?
I hope that what it's doing, and I think we're seeing evidence of that. One of our students was only with us a year. He was actually one of the teacher aides, but my hope, and he's going on to college in Phnom Penh. My goal is to make a difference in these kids and to ultimately raise and break the cycle of poverty and raise the quality of life that they have and open doors for them. And I think, I can't expect just an English class to do that, but if we add other things and if we provide them opportunity, it's just one step. I mean, there's other steps that have to be taken, but I think it's something that opens the door for them to many other things and many other opportunities.
Yeah, maybe just a plug in here how we met, how I came to meet Duane. Maybe we can tell a little bit of the stories in there, and then I will just share a little bit what I think of Cultivating Cambodia and why I got involved into that. So we met, I believe that was in 2019, Duane?
2019 or late, maybe it was mid 2018, 2019. It was maybe 2019. Yeah, and there was an article in the Salt Lake Tribune that had run a story on 4 non-traditional females graduating from 4 different universities in Utah. And one of them was on your friend Nika, who was graduating from BYU and going to work with Dell. And at the time we were doing a computer lab, my sister-in-law read the article in the Salt Lake Tribune, and she immediately sent the article to her sister, my wife, and said, "Oh, you need to have Duane look at this." So I read it. I contacted the editor and said, "Hey, this is a Cambodian. We're doing a computer lab. Can you please have her contact me?" And then that was like on a Thursday. I got an email from, I think you or her on Friday, and then you called me the following Monday.
Yeah, so after you sent an email to Nika, she actually forwarded the email to me, and she said, "Hey, somebody emailed me, and he's running a nonprofit in Cambodia. And since you are in the MPA program, you're very interested in nonprofits. I think maybe you can take a look at this, and maybe we can connect with him." So after I got that email, so that she forwarded to me, I started to so I emailed you not too long after that. I emailed you, and then you gave me your phone number, and we started to talk on the phone. And I was really, really resonated with what you're doing. Um, that's how it's kind of like a story how Duane and I and one of my good friends we met Duane, and after she graduated in April 2019, so not too long after that in June, so I went to Cambodia for the summer for an internship for another organizations, and Nika had not been home for maybe 5 years because she was in college and never had the opportunity to go back and visit. Then, so it happened that she also went home to visit. So both her and I, we actually went and visited some of the schools and met some of the children and the teachers. I actually visited more schools than Nika because of her time. She didn't have enough time but I was there longer. But yeah, so after we went and visited some of the schools and met with the children and the teachers, we're really impressed by what Duane has been doing, especially with children, providing them education. Sorry, I got emotional a little bit.
You're a rock. I've never seen you get teary.
Yeah, so it's really touching when I talk about it, because so we saw these children, they were really happy and eager to be in school and be educated, and it just brought back memories that when we were children, especially me, I grew up in the village, right? I used to be like one of them. So I came from a family that we were not rich or anything. So I was a village girl as well. So that's why I'm drawn to this organization, because I think that they're heading the right direction by providing education, especially trying to teach children to learn a new language, especially English, since it's a really common language for communication across the globe. And it just brought me back how, like how I felt and what kind of dreams I had when I was a child. And if I would have not been in school, especially learn English, maybe more doors will never be open to me. And kind of like Duane said, providing English, helping these children to learn English will be a stepping stone and will open more doors of opportunities for them. I would imagine myself, if I never learned English, I never knew English, I don't think I would be here in the States, pursue higher education and having more opportunities that I would never had before if I didn't learn this language before.
I was really, when I remember that phone call very well. And one of the things that I remember most about that phone call was at the end of that phone call, you said, I've been researching your website, looking at what you're doing. This is way back before you'd gone, when I first met you on the phone. And you said to me, I was one of those children in a village, and I'm here today because I had that opportunity. And I think, you've hit it on the head in terms of why it makes a difference. You're a perfect example. Here you are, you've graduated with a master's degree at a U.S. college or university. And I mean, it's amazing that, those little steps can lead to something and make such great change. And now you can make changes and help Cambodia, as a whole, improve. And it's just great to see. And to answer your question, my goal is to see more of our students be like where you are and where Nika have the things you've accomplished. To get to that level would just be amazing, and would be something that I think would be my ultimate desire, to see those kids reach that goal.
Yeah, definitely. I think you head in the right direction. Another question I'm curious to know, since you started cultivating Cambodia until now, what are some challenges have you faced throughout this time?
Um, for me, it's I like to, the more I do it, the more I want to be there because, like you, when you see those kids and you see the desire to learn, the respect that they have. One of the challenges I have is just not being able to go as often as I'd like to go. For me to be able to run the organization, I have to work. And so, plus I have other responsibilities here. But distance is a challenge. We're young, we're new, and I think because it was something so needed and it was the right thing, it just took off. And I had no idea that in 2 years, we'd have 750 students, and so growth was an issue. Um, you know, Raising funds for that big of a program is a challenge. We have no grant writer. I do the website. Shanto helps me with some pictures and things like that. And fortunately, we have you and Nika to advise us, and we have the skills of Vita to help do our teaching. We have a really good team there, but we still have our challenges. And I think some of the challenges, like I said, are things that are there are hard. It's hard to break, when we don't have the funds. I think I've told you before. I mean, we don't have the funds to go to a family and say, okay, what would it take to pay you to let your child not work and go to school? We don't have those kind of funds. I wish we did, but we don't. There is organizations in Cambodia that have that. That is one of the challenges. People have to eat. And I think a lot of us that live in first world countries have a hard time realizing how many sacrifices have to be made for a child to go to school. And so that is one of the challenges, getting over the fear of education. I mean, I have some of the people I work with, they've actually watched their own loved ones executed because they were educated. So, trying to get them past these things. And for me, it's time. It took off faster than I expected, and I work full time as a periodontist, and I am kind of one of those that I'm not a micromanager, but I want to try to contain it and be involved. But I've learned. I mean, I am the only non-Cambodian in the program, and which has been really is great, because I really, at some point, it needs to be handed off. I remember when we moved Shanto into an administrative position, he's like, oh, I can't do that. And it's like, but Shanto, this has to become a Cambodian thing. This has to become Cambodia's organization. I mean, we do have an NGO there, but it needs to be, all of our schools are built by Cambodians. They're all taught by Cambodians. And this has to be something that I think Cambodians have embraced, but getting the funds to be able to provide the services and things we want, that is always a challenge. I at some point need to find grants and get a grant writer, and but we just keep moving along. And fortunately, we've had really good donors. I remember a friend of mine, when we first started, walked in the back door of my office and left an envelope. And I had been seeing patients, and I came back and I saw it, or she was walking out the door right as I saw she put it on my desk, and I grabbed it. I said, "What's this?" She goes, "Oh, it's just something to help you get started." That little something to help get started built our very first school. And I could tell you story after story, the great things that people have done. And I really like people to go. I'm so glad that you guys could actually go to the schools and see these kids and see the difference that it's making. It's really hard to put into words how their lives are changing.
It's definitely I agree with you on that, and I have seen impacts you made in those children's lives, and imagine the future they will have, because of that. So since it's Giving Tuesday, what is the message you have for people out there who are listening and wanting to find a place that they can donate and give back or make a difference in someone's life?
Well, obviously we've put a plug in for Cultivating Cambodia, but I think anywhere that you can make a difference in the world, you will find that you get far more out of it than you give. People ask me, those kids, they'll say those kids are so lucky. And I'm like, I actually get more out of this, I'm sure, than they do. And I think anyone who gets involved in that kind of service will feel that way. Giving Tuesday is a great opportunity just to remind us to give. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays. I really am an anti-Black Friday. I hate Black Friday because we do this, we have this day of giving thanks, and then the next day we go out and, buy all this stuff. And as I've gotten older and as I've been involved in things like this, I realize so much of the stuff that I think I need, I really don't. And what really I want to leave behind is maybe that I've made a difference in the life of a child by providing education and providing them a pathway. And I will, my plug is, no matter whether it's Cambodia or wherever, it's just a good reminder. It's a good day. We have companies like Meta or Facebook who will match donations. Facebook will match up to $8 million, which, by the way, that starts at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And by 8:10, 8:15, there has been that many donations made that up to $8 million Facebook will match. And I think that's great that there's that many people out there that donate, and within 10 minutes nationwide, we have $8 million already donated. I think that speaks a lot. And I think, but us as a nation and most people, we have so much more than we need. And I just think giving is important. And I think, once you see it, it's like I've told you, I cannot unsee the things I've seen or unhear the stories I've heard. That is what motivates me. And I think if people get involved in this, they will see those same stories and have the same life-altering effects that it's had on my life.
Thank you, Duane, for this interview. And thank you for all the things that you've done to those children in Cambodia. And I can tell you that you have made a difference in their life, in a lot of ways, especially to help them to have a better futures and open doors of opportunities for them. And my message at the end would be to those of you out there who are looking for a way to make a difference. Please donate to Cultivating Cambodia in whatever that you possibly can, because every donations that you donate to Cultivating Cambodia will count and do make a difference in all those children's life. Kind of like you heard a little bit of a story I mentioned earlier about my life, because I am a living witness of that. And that's why I'm really drawn to all the things that Cultivating Cambodia has been doing. And hopefully that through this interview, you will be able to learn a little bit more about Cultivating Cambodia. And I will leave a link of the website. Cultivating Cambodia does have a website and a Facebook page, and also for a link if you want to donate. Hopefully that you will find a way to give back to even to the world, to your community, or to someone's life with the donations that you have. And we really appreciate that a lot.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all that you do to help us. I mean, you've been a great support to us. And I would tell anyone listening to this, if they ever want to go and visit the schools, I'd love them to see it. I'd love them to see these kids and these beautiful faces. That brings me so much happiness when you guys went. I was so happy. So thank you for all that you do for us too. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Duane.